Hey there, VCE HHD students. My name's Andy. I'm a VC Health and Human Development teacher. In this short video, we're going to look at answering the 2023 VCE HHD exam question number 13. Before we dive into this video, I've been working on a resource recently that's now published, and that's with ACE. It's this revision question book here for HHD and the new study design from 2025 to 2029. So if you're a 2025 HHD student, you might be interested in getting a copy of this book. It's got more than 500 marks worth of practice questions to help you prepare for Unit 3 and 4 SACs and the end of your exam. It includes mark-by-mark answer guides on all the questions, as well as a full chapter on how to approach and answer extended response questions with sample questions and A+ answers, as well as a full Unit 3 and 4 trial exam. So they're available at book.acedvce.com. You can scroll down when you head to that page and see you can place an order, and copies are going into the post daily because it's already been published. So if you'd like to get a copy of that, just head to book.acedvce.com. Okay, so question 13 in the 2023 exam was the 10-mark question. And so this is the last question on the paper. And you'll notice that for the last few years, the extended response question has been the final question on the paper. Now, before we dive into this question here, hopefully you will know that in our back catalogue on our YouTube channel, we've got a couple of videos that go into quite a bit of detail about how to approach extended response questions. So these videos look at analysing sources, breaking down the question, and structuring a response. So if you're looking for some more sort of general information on extended response questions, make sure you go back and have a look at those. They're some of the first videos we ever did on the YouTube channel, so they're way back at the beginning of our video list. They were done earlier last year. So you can see here, the first part of the question last year in 2023 was asking you to consider the following three sources relating to inequality and discrimination. So source one was some information here, okay, on Afghanistan and Australia. And so it was kind of a data table, was looking at life expectancy at birth for females, human development index, the maternal mortality ratio, and nursing and midwifery personnel. Now, it's important to look, okay, at this information and take note of units where relevant, because that's always important to include in data when you're using this as part of your answer to the question. Source two is then looking at a bit of an infographic here, which had some information on gender inequality. Now, I won't read through all of these, but when you do have a look at this, you'll see a number of these pieces of information were relating to differences between males and females in relation to accessing things like education or participation in the workforce, as well as levels of physical and sexual violence that women had often experienced. Source three was then looking at a bit of a case study here that was focusing on Save the Children, an international NGO that had suspended its operations in Afghanistan following the Taliban's announcement that women were banned from working for them. So it goes on to talk about how women were sort of an integral part to this NGO, and that when the Taliban, okay, banned them from working for NGOs, they couldn't sort of continue to carry out their important work. Hopefully you would have noticed that this is focusing on Afghanistan, which was also mentioned in source one. So then there's the question. So here you can see it asked that you needed to use information from all three sources and your own knowledge to discuss the contribution of inequality and discrimination to variations in health status between low-income countries such as Afghanistan and high-income countries such as Australia. So hopefully when you saw that part of the question, you'd be thinking back to source one that was looking at, okay, some of those health status indicators and some of the differences between Afghanistan and Australia, and thinking you could make some links in there. The contribution of SDG 5, gender equality, to achieving SDG 3, good health and well-being. Now, you need to look at the direction that the question's leading you here. So it wants you to talk about how SDG 5 is contributing to achieving SDG 3, not the opposite, not how a lack of, okay, progress in SDG 5 is having an impact on not achieving SDG 3. It's how contributing to SDG 5 and the key features could help to achieve SDG 3. So you need to think about what some of those key features are for SDG 5 and how you could link those into SDG 3. And then the role of NGOs in promoting health and well-being and human development for women and girls in low-income countries such as Afghanistan. So it mentions here, obviously, health and well-being. So you're thinking about the dimensions of health and well-being as well as human development. So the phrases from the human development definition. And so you need to make sure that you didn't miss either of those aspects of the question there, okay, because they're both important to include in your answer. Now, we have talked about previously when sort of structuring a response, it's often useful to think about these sort of three, I guess, points that have popped up quite a number of times recently on VCAR exams as the way that they've sort of laid out the extended response as perhaps the focus of your sort of three main paragraphs when you're structuring an answer. And that can kind of help you to think about how to go about writing a response. You can see here from the examiner's report that Unsurprisingly, based off previous exams, not a lot of students, okay, were really achieving up in the 7 to 10 range, okay, and a lot of students, okay, were either achieving 0 or 1 or 2, 3 marks. And so this is just some information generally on how these responses are marked. And so it's like a global marking, I guess, structure that uses like a rubric. And it says here that most students who attempt the question gain some marks, okay, but then it went on to say that common errors included discussing how discrimination and inequality, okay, could affect or influence health and well-being instead of health status, and then explaining how a lack of progress towards SDG 5 may limit progress towards SDG 3, instead of discussing the contribution of SDG 5 to achieving SDG 3, and also neglecting to link the role of NGOs to both health and wellbeing and human development. So really, hopefully, in the exam and in trial exams that you're doing in the lead up to the exam, you've got some kind of system in place where you can make sure, okay, that you're sort of highlighting the key parts of the question, and as you're writing your answer, you're going back and ticking off all of those different elements so that you don't miss any of those. We do have some suggested sample answers from the 2023 exam from the Health Resources Hub that have got also considerations when it comes to each of the questions. So if you're after a copy of those, you can touch base with your teacher regarding that. Now, you'll see here I've also included from the examiner's report an example of a high scoring response. And I won't read through all of this, but what you can note as you look over this is that the student often, okay, when referring to information from the different sources, was placing that in brackets, what source it came from beside that information, which I think is a good idea because it helps to signpost to the markers at the end of the year where you've got that information from. And it also makes it easier for them to sort of quickly check that you've referenced all the different sources, okay, as part of your answer, because obviously that's a key part of the question. So if you're not sort of mentioning as part of the sentence like they did here, okay, that the information comes from a specific source, then putting that information in brackets beside it is also a good idea. You can see here they've kind of got 3 main paragraphs. This is the sort of second part of their answer there. And that, as I've talked about in previous videos, ideally, if you're able to weave in a couple of sources, if not all of them, per paragraph, that's a really good way of showing that you've been able to make sort of connections between the different sources and also the question to help you achieve a high scoring response. So I'd go back and have a look at this and then obviously attempt this question. And then if you're after some feedback, have a chat to your teacher about that. Okay, hopefully you found this video useful. If you're on YouTube at the moment, you can subscribe with the button in the bottom corner of the video there to get alerts to new videos that'll be coming out in the lead up to the HHD exam this year and also later this year. If you head to our website, thehrh.net.au, there's opportunities for teachers and students. You can see our social media links there if you'd like to follow us and get alerts to other videos and opportunities, and also our email if you'd like to get in touch. Thanks so much.